Piano Jazz is made possible by the National Endowment for the Arts, the Baldwin Piano Company, and NPR. Hi, I'm Marian McPartland. My guest today is pianist John Williams. He's long been an integral part of the jazz scene and involved with memorable recordings and sessions with the likes of Stan Getz, Charlie Parker, and Zoot Sims. He's here to tell us all about those exciting times and his life today. Hi, John.
Hi, Marian.
Great to see you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm glad I could. And you know, hearing you play, it reminds me of so many things that happened years ago and records that I listened to of yours. And I guess you might have maybe stopped by the Hickory House at one time.
Oh, I surely did.
Did you?
I did indeed. I remember it well. You were a beautiful fixture.
Well, you started out really young, didn't you, John?
Yes, Marian, I did. I was 16 when
Wow.
I got an opportunity to go on the road with a pretty good band called Mal Hallett.
I remember that band.
Yeah, Buddy Wise was on it. Donnie Fagerquist was on it briefly while I was on, and good players. And the only reason, really, that those opportunities came about was with the war on in 1945. The guys that were 4F and us youngsters that were pre-draft age got to play with the big bands. So it was quite an opportunity.
Gee, I never thought of that because I was already in France with USO cab shows. I think I had met Jimmy McPartland, and I think we were just getting together or getting married or both. And I didn't realize that you had started that soon. But then you had to go and fight the war, didn't you?
Well, it was a different war.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, a little different, that's for sure. I was in the Korean War from 51 to 53 in the 40th Division Band in Korea with some very wonderful players like Eddie Costa and Dick Nash, Ted Nash's brother, and now the father of the young Ted Nash. So at least we weren't being shot at least not closely.
You know, there's so much to talk about, but before we go on, I would love to hear you play something. And we're fortunate today in having a wonderful bassist that you know very well, that I know very well for many years, Mr. Michael Moore. And what are you going to do for
Well, with Mike's help, and I'm delighted he's here as well, of course, I'm going to do Crazy She Calls Me. It's an extended version, kind of, but pretty much like Roger Kellaway did it. That's where I heard this particular arrangement of it. I hope I can do it as the justice that Roger did.
We'll just call it your arrangement.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You know, I've never heard an arrangement like that. It's wonderful. And it just makes me think how far away from the Billie Holiday version of that tune. But, you know, years ago, musicians, well, they still do, they would take a tune that is starts life as a ballad and do it as you just did with that one. But that's what I think of as when people ask me, what is bebop? That is.
Well, I'm glad, Marian. I enjoy it very much.
Well, is that something that you probably recorded years ago, that tune?
No, I did do it in 1994 for a Japanese producer that I understand he has released a CD in Japan. But you can't read the notes. You can't read the liner notes.
You know, that's so mean of them.
No, that's good. That's good. If you can't read the liner notes,
yeah,
that's a plus.
I think that's terrible. They put it in Japanese and they never give you the translation. I hope that record will come out pretty soon.
I hope so. Thank you.
Well, I don't know how far back I should go. Let's see. We got to the Korean War and you told me. But then you came, after that, when you came back to New York and got into things with a really heavy, didn't you?
Yes, I got very lucky. I had been in New York two years before I got drafted, and got to play a lot of sessions and things like that, and got in the swing of things, so to speak, with some wonderful players, including a few sessions with Bird, which were a remarkable experience for a young 21-year-old, you know. And then, but after I came out of the Army in January of '53, I was very fortunate and was. I went on the road with Charlie Barnett out of the city for a few weekends, and then I got a chance to go with Stan Getz, which was like a dream come true. And after we did 2 long tours, but that first one came back to the city in the fall of '53, and then stayed in the city until late '54, and got to play and do some record dates with Zoot, my very favorite of all, and Al Cohen, and wonderful players. I felt I was in a charmed world there for a few years.
Well, how was it working with Stan? I mean, he could be so...
Well, I always felt a little bit like I was the moderator, you know, because I don't know that that's fair to say, but it was one of these things where you felt like if Stan said something and the drummer took it the wrong way, I think I understood what he meant, and I would make it easier on the drummer, and then it would be the bass player. You know, I felt like a young moderator, but... perhaps I overstated my position there.
Probably you'd be exactly right about it. It must have been, I think it was Zoot Sims or somebody who said, Stan Getz is a nice bunch of guys.
Right, he said that. Right.
I always think that's one of the classic remarks of anything that was ever said about Stan. But I mean, I envy you being with him because he was such a marvelous player.
Oh, he was a great player, yeah.
He affected me a lot with tunes that he played. Like I heard him play a Billy Strayhorn tune once called Blood Count. Yes. And hearing him do that made me get the tune and learn it.
Yeah. I was in... charge of putting the Hollywood Jazz Festival together for a number of years because I was a city commissioner in Hollywood for 20 years.
Yeah, I was going to...
Well, I didn't mean to interject that here, except that one year I tried to put back together the Stan Getz, Bobby Brookmeyer, John Williams, Frank Isola. Teddy Kotick had passed away, but I tried to put that back together. And Stan was already sick in Malibu, but he was willing to come. But... every other day he'd call and he wanted to bring another person, his Japanese cook, his girlfriend manager, and after a while the budget just got busted and we couldn't put it together. But I felt good that I had tried to do that.
Well, and also that you got to play with him on so many occasions.
Oh, yes, indeed, yes.
Well, before we go on, how about another tune with you and Mike?
Well, I'd like to very much. I'd like to try a Bud Powell tune called So Sorry, Please.
You know, that's one I don't think I know, or maybe I will when I hear it. So I'm dying to hear this tune.
Well, I hope you can say that when I finish, Marian.
I'm sure I can.
All right, Mike.
I hear the tune, of course I know it. I
Sure.
just didn't recognize the title. But you really are a fan of Bud Powell. But who else?
Oh, well, currently, of course, I love Kenny Barron. I think my favorite rhythm section of all time is that Stan Getz thing with Kenny Barron, Victor Lewis, and Rufus Reid in Copenhagen. I love that thing and think that's the way rhythm section should be. And I love Billy Sharlop, of course, and Ted Rosenthal. I enjoy them. I sit in awe and listen, as I did on the QE2 when Bill Michael was there, and we sat and listened to Bill Sharlop do a solo afternoon. It was wonderful.
Oh, that was just a couple of years ago you were on that,
No,
weren't you?
that was just this past year.
Yeah, but I mean, you went as a visitor,
Yes, as a good tourist, a good jazz-enjoying tourist.
But you got to sit in, I hope.
Yes, I did a little bit, and then I got to play with Spike Robinson when I got to Europe for a few gigs and had a wonderful time.
Yeah, there was a great write-up about you in the Jazz Journal. There's all kinds of stuff.
Well,
you're quite a legend,
Marian, you know those nice English people, how kind they can be.
Well, sometimes they can be okay. Oh, listen, I've got to ask you this, though. You went down and lived in Florida, and you sort of, you did something. I mean, we've never had a pianist be on the show who took time off to be the city commissioner of Hollywood, Florida. I mean, that's pretty impressive,
Well, it was... I felt good about that 20 years. Of course, I worked at a bank at the same time, and but working as a city commissioner, I felt that it was a very good opportunity. I felt I did a good job and was well received by the people. I got elected 5 times, Marian, so
must have been all
I couldn't
right.
have been all bad, right?
No,
right.
But I mean, you were able to do a lot of stuff for jazz, like start the Hollywood, Florida Jazz Festival.
Yes, and I had the advantage of being able to call up old friends and see if they would come down, and we did that, and incorporated a lot of times with the wonderful University of Miami Jazz Orchestra, and have arrangers come down. Bobby Brookmeyer came down, Rob McConnell, Med Flory came in, old friends. We really did have. It was a great mainstream type festival.
You went. Is that festival still happening?
It's still happening, and I did get a chance to play again with a lot of old friends, and that helped me, kind of feel like there was a reason to continue to get back in maybe a little bit after I retired from the bank and after I got off the city commission, and with the help of a few friends, and I was able to feel a bit resurrected and meet wonderful people and wonderful players like that Michael Moore over there, and went to Europe a couple times, played with Spike at the Cork Festival in Ireland, and Bill Crow.
Well, you've really made full circle. Right?
Yes.
You've been in the business, and you left the business, and you came back in the business,
Right.
and now you're back in the business for good.
Well, not too many people have that wonderful opportunity.
And I mean, now you can just keep going, and
oh, I hope, Marian, if I can follow in your footsteps, I will keep going.
listen, we're thrilled to have you here
Thank
and
you.
be playing
Thank
together.
you.
Which reminds me, shouldn't we play a duet or
I
something?
would
What do
love
you
that.
think?
I would love that.
How much 2 pianos? Have you played 2 pianos a little bit?
No, not really. Not probably twice in my life have I done that.
Really?
Yeah, I'll
Well,
try
now
to
it's
stay out of
coming-
your way.
No, I'll stay out of yours.
No.
That's one of the big things about playing 2 pianos. I think that's the secret of it, really, is just to sort of stay out of each other's way.
That's true.
I think that's all you can say about it.
That's true.
What should we do? Like Someone in Love? How does that?
That would be fine. That would
Sound.
be fine.
Okay.
B flat, all right?
B flat is all right.
All right.
Okay. I love that tune, and that's really a nice tempo. You really have a knack of picking the perfect tempo.
I like them walking. That's nice.
Yeah, I
That's a
can
nice
see that
walking
you do.
tune.
You know, Bill Crow used to get mad at me because he would think that I counted it off a little too slow or a little too fast.
Oh, I
And,
doubt that.
I guess I learned after a while. And it's funny, you do remind me just a little bit of Eddie Costa.
Well, other people have said that way back, and that's a delight for me. Of course, Eddie was a marvelous vibes player, and
Yes, he was.
Yes, and he played a lot of, like Terry Gibbs will play piano. Eddie would sit down and do that when we had the Gulbranson in the Army at the in Korea. Horrible spinets, as you know, that's all the U.S. Army could afford, I guess. But Eddie and I would sit down, and I'd play, and he'd play like Terry Gibbs would at the top. He'd play vibes piano at the top. We'd have a good time, you know.
I used to get sort of jealous of him because Joe Morello loved the way he played, and he always said he had such a great sense of time, and you know, I would get very jealous because I probably did not have as good time as Eddie did, and you know,
Eddie died so young.
I know, such a shame. Wonderful guy.
Like so many others, but
anyway, that was fun, and there's more to come with John Williams. I'm Marian McPartland, and this is Piano Jazz. Our program is made possible in part by a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts. You know, it's so great, John, that we have Michael Moore here today because I guess you know that he used to be my bass player years ago.
yes, I know that.
We did do some recording years ago, and he wrote a lot of interesting tunes, and he had one called The Wisdom of the Heart, and it might be fun to play that for you.
Oh, I'd love to hear that.
All right.
That was beautiful. I enjoyed that so very much. That was gorgeous.
It really is a nice tune. It's a kick to play that again after all this time. Well, you know, it's funny. One of my favorite things to do is a ballad, but that's not necessarily true of other people. I mean, how about you? What's your favorite tempo?
I always felt strong as a rhythm section player, Marian, with a full rhythm section and a horn player, but I've never considered myself much of a ballad player.
Well, you were kind of hiding in the rhythm section.
Yeah.
Or at least you thought you
yeah,
were, but
well,
you weren't really, because, when it came time for you to play, then you'd play some fantastic choruses.
Well, and I always feel the piano player is 1/3 of the rhythm section, and that doesn't seem to be always so today, but I've always felt that a 3-man rhythm section, the piano player was 1/3 of it. And that's
in other words, you were being very modest, but the way you play, you could take 4 or 5 choruses and nobody would care. But I've also heard you play some ballads, and as a matter of fact, I would love to hear you do one now. Like you've got this tune that you were telling me about.
Yes.
By Bob Brookmeyer.
Right. It's a tune he wrote a number of years ago called "Who Could Care." Not "I Should Care," but "Who Could Care." And
it's a great title.
It is a good title, and it's a very pretty tune. I hope I can do it some justice.
I'm dying to hear it.
All right.
Boy, that Bob Brookmeyer sure can write beautiful tunes.
He certainly can.
And you did a wonderful job on it.
Thank you.
Who says you can't play or you don't like to play ballads? That was wonderful, and it had a lot of great feeling to it, you know. It was really nice.
Thank you.
Well, we'll have more in a minute. My guest is John Williams with bassist Michael Moore. I'm Marian McPartland, and this is Piano Jazz, made possible in part by the Baldwin Piano Company, manufacturers of the pianos heard on Piano Jazz, 1-800-876-2976. You know, I was remembering that we talked about you playing with Bird, with Charlie Parker. Now, didn't some of that session, or didn't some of that come out on a record?
It came out, Marion, but they were an assemblage of black market tapes, so to speak. Jimmy Nepper. The jam sessions were held at an underground pad up a Broadway someplace, and Bird would come by, and they made a bunch of sessions. And Jimmy Nepper would always only record Bird, and then he'd stop the tape. You know? And so, but someone in England, I think, originally took all those old tapes and edited them together, and there's some marvelous Bird on there, and there's a little bit of John Williams, and I'm thrilled about that. You know, I hold that up and show my friends, see, there, I played with Bird, and I did work I worked a New Year's Eve gig with Bird as a result of those sessions up in Boston. I'd gone home to get drafted. And I'll never forget, because I played with Bird on New Year's Eve, and 3 weeks later, it's my 22nd birthday, January 28th, and I'm at the reception center in Fort Devens, prying up frozen cigarette butts out of the ice, policing the area. And I'm saying, what happened? You know, what happened? I just played with Bird two or 3 weeks ago, and here I am, and I didn't even smoke, you know, and I'm policing the area at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my God, that's too... That's too much of a culture shock.
It was a culture shock, yes.
But that one of those sessions, as you say, that somebody in England picked it up. So they have a way of retrieving every last inch of tape and making something good out of it, don't they?
They certainly do.
I think that's wonderful that you'll have a record of yourself with Bird, because I would love to have had something like that. I mean, I saw him a lot, but I never got to play with him. Well, what can we do, the three of us? What would you... have you got a suggestion for a tune?
We liked this waltz some time ago.
Now, isn't that a tune that Zoot played a lot?
Yes, it is indeed. Yeah, Zoot Sims, my favorite.
He's your favorite of all time.
Of all time, yes.
Well, tell me that story about Zoot's cousin.
Well, it's not his cousin. It turns out, and this was a real tickle, as we used to say. Zoot's nephew turns out to be Mark Polanski, who was the pilot of the shuttle launch just before this one.
Oh my goodness!
On the Atlantis, and my wife and I watched the shuttle launches down in Florida from our dock. We can see him. I'd had no idea Zoot's nephew was piloting the spacecraft, but I found out the next day that to surprise his parents and his Aunt Louise, who was Zoot's widow, he had set up wake-up music from ground control, and he picked a tune that I was on in 1956 with Zoot. George Handy wrote, called "Where You At? Where's Your Natural Habitat?" It's one of the few things. It's one of the few things that Zoot ever sang. And, you know, he sang with such a lilt, like Jack Teagarden, and you know, and it was a real cute thing. And Louise was so kind, and she called me to tell me about her own personal experience, not expecting it, and lying in bed at the Cape the following morning, and all of a sudden, the first thing she heard on the NASA channel at her hotel room was Zoot singing and playing "Where You At? Where's Your Natural Habitat?" Gus Johnson was on it, Nabi Toda, and myself. And of course, I thought that was marvelous. I've told everybody that's just perfect, because every time Zoot picked up his horn, he was in orbit. as far as I was concerned.
You're
So,
absolutely right. That I guess it's a shame somebody doesn't do that tune because it was a cute
Yeah,
tune.
it was a cute tune. Where you at? Where's your natural habitat? Where you at? I want to go there. You
Yeah.
know, like that. You know.
Yeah. Oh, that's a wonderful experience. And anyway, back to us, and this is a tune that you played with Zoot, I guess.
I don't think I ever did with
Some
Zoot.
time ago.
But some time ago, I played with Zoot. Yes, you could say
well,
that.
so
yes.
that's close enough.
That's close enough.
All right, maybe I'll do a out of ad lib course or something.
That
Start
would
this
be
off,
nice.
and then we'll just
All right.
go wherever we go.
That would be nice.
I'm so glad you picked that tune because I don't hear it that much. Not too many people play that.
I like it.
I love
Yeah.
it. It's so strange to me that you spent so much time being city commissioner because you're just playing as if there had been no no let up in between. You must have kept playing all that time.
Well, I would have opportunities, and I worked at the bank for 20 years, and I've told people there was a little club down the street in Hollywood where they had jazz on Friday afternoon from 4 to 7, and I'd leave the bank at 5 and run down the street and play with these young people. They were all on electrical instruments, which I was not too comfortable with, but they always were very welcoming, and I'd sit in, and I was 22 years old for 15 minutes, and I could go home and handle the rest of the week. So that was very helpful.
A few years ago, I used to have, there was a bank in New York, the Manhattan something bank, and they had a space where they had a piano player playing in there.
Wow.
So I was just thinking, you should have started something in the bank.
That would have been tough, Marian. That would have been tough.
Well, but now you're back in it again. Aren't you just going to keep playing gigs
Well,
and keep going?
I would really like to. The more I do it, the less apprehensive I become. Of course, that's normal, I guess. And I've had, I told a reviewer in England who asked me about this having an opportunity. I said, now I know how Lazarus felt being raised from the dead, because in a sense, that's in a sense what it feels like, to have an opportunity again to play with wonderful players and sit in wonderful rhythm sections again. I mean,
well, now just keep playing. I mean, just don't take another job at a bank. That's all.
Not much chance of that, Marian, but thank you. I'd love to keep playing if I can.
Well, it's really such a pleasure to have you and Mike Moore too to do piano jazz today, and maybe we could wind up with something from your repertoire that you like to play, like what?
Well, how about A Night Has 1,000 Eyes?
That's a great tune.
Okay, we'll play a little pattern on the front with a Charleston feel.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I love that. My guest today on Piano Jazz has been John Williams with bassist Michael Moore. I'm Marian McPartland, inviting you to join me again next week. Piano Jazz is recorded at Avatar Studios in New York City and is a production of South Carolina Educational Radio. The producer is Sherry Hutchinson, recording engineers Duke Marcos, mastering engineers David Mitchell, production manager is Audrey Shiflett, executive producer is Elaine Freeman. Major support for Piano Jazz comes from the Wallace Reader's Digest Funds, seeking to enrich community life through support of education, the arts, and culture. Additional support comes from the Friends of Piano Jazz, NPR stations, the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, promoting excellence in journalism worldwide and investing in the vitality of 26 U.S. communities. And from Hilton Head Island, South Carolina's Chamber of Commerce, hosting Bravo, Celebrate the Arts, May, www.hiltonheadisland.org.